So, Genshin's nations. So, we have a picture here. This is Bardo de Pacotia, and this is their opinion about the nation so far. Clearly, they didn't like Inazuma, nor did they seem to like Mondstadt or Leeway, which is, I mean, we'll get into that. Um, and then we have this person, Shiro. Obviously, they didn't like Sumeru very much. But everything else, Fontaine, peak writing, in my opinion. But we've actually created or not created, but got a tier list. So we're going to talk about some of the nations. And then we have stuff like, I think, like the chasm and stuff like that. We're talking about the nations, not the little smaller areas. Because quite frankly, I really don't care about them. Like, I was so looking forward to the chasm. I'm like, okay, this is kind of boring. Um, so, Mondstadt. Mondstadt, people are complaining, people don't like the fact that the story wasn't that great. But you have to remember this was 4 years ago. They didn't think anyone was really going to play the game. And they wanted to introduce the story to people in a way that wasn't overwhelming. Because when you see how complicated the story is now, you're kind of glad they gave it to you the way they did. Because they're between with the heavenly principles and the lore from the fight between the heavenly principles and the ancient dragons and the first one, it was just it's insane. It's insane. So I'm glad they just kind of gave us stuff like with Dvalin and Venti and kind of dripped some of that lore in there. It was a starting area, hey, welcome to Genshin Impact. Your tutorial area, you got free characters in the form of Amber, Kaya, Lisa. The terrain was fairly easy to get around, not weren't too vertically challenged for the most part. Treasures were simple enough to find, the puzzles were simple enough. It was a starting area. So, for what it was, 4 years ago, and you can just look at the character demos from 4 years ago. Kaya's the first one. Kaya was the first one to get a demo, and it was like 50 seconds long. Or actually, it was like 49 seconds or something like that. And it's just like, I'm cavalry captain of the Knights of Avonius. And that was, you just showed him off a little bit in there. But now you look at them, and there's just like these stories that go on for like 4 or 5 minutes. And then there were some characters that didn't even get a demo. Razor didn't get one. I don't think Chongyun got one. Shinsho, I don't think got one. Who else didn't get one? Uh, Jean didn't get one. D Luke didn't get one. Like, there are so many characters that didn't get a demo. So for what it was, I give it a B. It's not peak like an S, and it's good, just not good enough for A. But for what they were trying to do, get you into the story, let you learn how to play the game, kind of open you to the fact that there's going to be a lot of puzzles and treasure and all that to find on your way. They did exactly what they were trying to do at a time where they didn't think a whole lot of people were going to play. Um, the Archon quest was really good. Venti is an amazing character. Wouldn't gliding be faster? No, Venti. I'm running down there. Gliding would not be faster. Um, meeting so many characters between, Kaya and D Luke and Barbara and Klee and there's so many amazing characters in Mondstadt that it's hard to just say, oh yeah, it's forgettable. No, it's not. It's definitely not C or D. But it's definitely probably B. And these are just my opinions. If you disagree, by all means, tell me your own, what you think, your own tier list. All right, Leeway. Um, Nation-wise, I love the way it looks. I love the aesthetic of it, the golden, yellows and stuff like that. Zhongli, great Archon, great character. The whole story with him, and you see him being stingy with Mora, and then you realize, oh, gee, that's why he's being stingy. You have a lot of people. not liking the dialogue or thinking it's bland. But again, this was 4 years ago at a time where they didn't think that people were going to stick around. So they dripped a bit more lore and stuff like that. We got to meet the Adepti. We got Zhao, who is fan favorite. Um, but you also have Child, Mr. Worldwide. Everywhere we go, he seems to pop up. Um, the Archon quest itself was really good. The ending of that quest, when you're talking to Signora and Child and Zhongli, and he kind of tells you why he did everything, what the whole thing was about, and then you realize why he was being so stingy with Mora. Uh, the fact that this guy's been around for 6,000 years or possibly longer, and establishing Liyue Harbor, 3,700 years ago, and he's watched this place grow, and he's like, well, is it finally time for me to step down? Like, I'm like a parental figure here. Is it time to let my children grow? To step back and just kind of let them take control. Is it my time yet? So he enacts this whole plan with you know, Signora and the Fatui, and obviously he had to ask the Saritsa for help, but in exchange, it's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll help you, but you got to give me your gnosis, and he's like, okay. Which at first it seems like a bad idea, but I think in his Archon, his story quest, I think it was the second part, he kind of tells you that the gnosis, he feels like the gnosis was kind of wearing him down. And I think he says like about rocks and boulders or like a cliff being eroded over time by the waves crashing against it. And I think he said something about his mental, his mental state or his personality was slowly being eroded away the longer he had the gnosis with him. Um, and which we kind of find out why in Fontaine. We find out why that is, why it feels like it's eating away at you. Um, but the puzzles were great. There are a lot of really good hidden ones. Um, you get to meet the Adepti, Moon Carver, Mountain Shaper, Cloud Retainer. Um, really good characters. We get Hu Tao, my girl Hu Tao, 77th director of the Wangshang Funeral Parlor. Uh, dark person. Great sense of humor though. Got dark sense of humor. Um, we finally get to meet Chi Chi, Dr. Baiju, and we don't get him as a playable character for like another 2 years. Um, but I think definitely A. The story was good, the characters were good. The land itself was really, really nice, really pretty. Like I said, a lot of cool hidden quests there to do for some nice extra treasure. Um, and all around, it was just a really, really good experience. Um, so I think it's for me, like I said, for me, it's an A. So yeah, I firmly believe it's an A. Inazuma, Inazuma. We get to meet Raiden Shogun. The whole Vision Hunt decree, we have to get there by boat with some help because we can't get there ourselves because there's an eternal tempest and storm going on because of the Raiden Shogun wanting to keep everyone out, trying to maintain eternity, just going around taking visions away from people. Um, we discover that wasn't really her, that what we see was actually a puppet, and that the Raiden Shogun herself is in her own little plane of euthymia, and she's just kind of meditating, chilling out there because she can't handle the outside world anymore. She's lost too much, from her, friends to her sister to, she's just like, you know what, I'm not mentally capable of surviving the outside world anymore, so I'm gonna have my puppet do this for me, and I'm staying in here for eternity. I'm staying here. No one bother me. There's a sign out there saying "Do not disturb." Okay, just leave me alone. We get to meet Miko, who is the one of the coolest characters in Fontaine. Not only is she incredibly powerful, but she is the Raiden Shogun's familiar. So not like they're best friends, but she's also basically a pet. Um, but being a pet doesn't mean really much to Miko because she loves giving her friend a hard time. She will tease her, she will ridicule her, she will berate her, she will anytime she can. But it's not out of, ill will. It's just, Miko's a fox and she likes being mischievous and, torturing people. Oh, Miko. Her demo, you would never really, you'd never do anything like that, would you? And she gives like this coy little look. It's like, yeah, she would. She will torture you to the point where you are begging her for death. And even then, she will continue to toy with you because she's a fox, and that's what foxes like to do. They like to toy with their prey. Um, but her story, Yoimiya, really amazing character for Yoimiya. Her story quest, really good. Um, I think Inazuma had some great side quests and stuff like that. Um, being introduced to like Ito and some other yokai were really, really cool. The fact that obviously I'm a little biased because I love Japan, the culture, the geography, the everything about Japan. It's just and the fact that they incorporated so much of it. Like I said, even they have yokai. I mean, not nearly as many yokai as Japan traditionally has, but you have your typical your oni, your kitsune, your kappa, your stuff like that. Um, you have your little tanukis running around. It was a good time. The color appearance, the color of the nation, that was like everything was purple and blue. It's like so much purple. There's so much purple. You would think it was William Afton's favorite land in the world. Hey, William, what are you doing? Good to see you in Inazuma again. I always come back. It's like it's so purple that it makes purple guy weak in the knees. Um, but I didn't like how all the puzzles there were essentially electro based. The other nations, you know, Fontaine, Mondstadt, Liyue, up until that point, you had challenges like the pillars and everything, elemental pillars of different elements. In Inazuma, it was just basically all electro, and it was just like, okay, boy, we have another electro challenge, yay! So, but the story overall was really, really good. The moment where we fight, where we actually lose to her the first time, you have that moment with Kazuha where you see this rift open and you see this massive Raiden Shogun just like woof, and you see Kazuha and him doing his thing, and um the first time we see out of the chest, and it was like, did she just pull a freaking sword out of her chest? Which shortly after became the Booba sword, by people. Um, but Raiden Shogun was really, really fun. Really cool character. Once you finish the Archon quest and you're going out with her. I think it's her story quest, and she's kind of walking around Inazuma City as just a regular person, and she's, I think there's like a moment where she's talking about like Dongo milk or something like that, and she was just really a sweet character, and she'd been in her plane of Euthymia for so long. She's walking around. It's like, wow, the last time I saw Inazuma City, it looked nothing like this. It was like 500 years ago. It was like the last time I saw Inazuma City was 500 years ago. Um, so I think it's not a bad story, but I would, uh, God, I'll put it at a B. I put it at a B. There's a lot about the nation I love, but unfortunately, stuff like the puzzles, I don't think the puzzles were as good. The terrain, the color scheme of the terrain got kind of boring. The purple, blue, that just really brought it down. So it could have been an A if not for simple things like that. Obviously not bad, but Sumeru already docking points from that because it was just too big. Like that desert was just way too big. Like each part was already like the size of like Liyue. It was insane how massive this place was. And I think that just kind of took away for me. I was like, do I really have to explore all of this now? It's like, oh yeah, you're here. Now you gotta go all the way. And it's like, I gotta run all the way over there. It's like the entire nation of Liyue right here. It's just, I gotta run all the way to there. Okay, better start running then. Um, but the story quest itself, the Archon quest, was amazing. The finale of that quest with Irminsul, inside Irminsul, and with Greater Lord Rokudevada and Nahida, and just my sweet little bean. um, a lot of cool characters. Alhaitham, Kava, uh, Dea. Uh, so a lot of cool characters introduced. I don't think for me, I think Nahida and maybe the Wanderer were probably the most memorable ones, most for me. I know there are a lot of Alhaitham fans and a lot of Kave fans, but for me, I mean, they're not forgettable. They're just, it's kind of like with Layla. It's like she's just kind of there. Or Faruzan, she's just kind of there. You don't really feel like they're doing much. Um, the nation itself, you go back to having a lot of different elemental puzzles, which is really, really good. Um, Finally getting Dendro, which was good, so you can introduce Dendro puzzles. Some of them were kind of dumb. Like I really wasn't a fan of the whole the ones in the air you have to keep and then you need like the little special thing. You need press this and then charge attack that. But we got introduced to the Aranara, um, which la 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 la. I love the Aranara, the Aranara, um, and they're just absolutely adorable. Um, you have their little dream tree and with the sigils that you collect, that you can put those in there and get more rewards and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, but then you start getting more into like the detail of like the story and like with King Deshret and Rukadevada and the whole story with the sages, kind of taking Nahida and just imprisoning her because they didn't think she was wise enough, despite the fact that she had literally just been born. Rukadevada dies and Nahida's born. They're like, oh, well, you're not nearly as smart as she was. It's like, bitch, she was just born. Okay? She was just born. And she's already a lot wiser than you were when you were first born because she's a god. So she's already pretty much at the age she should be. You were all like, the poopy type of. While Nahida they were like, oh, she just isn't smart enough. So it's like, oh, well, let's just imprison her and take her gnosis. There was with the doctor. It's like, is the doctor good? Is the doctor bad? But apparently Nahida trusted the doctor enough to keep her. They made their little deal, and she trusted him enough to fulfill his end of the bargain. Which once again shows that the Fatui aren't nearly as bad as they were made to, be, and Mondstadt. Like, oh my god, the Fatui need to be stopped. It's like, do they? Do they? By Fontaine, you really you realize, do we really need to stop the Fatui? I mean, really? But the story wise, I think Fontaine's strong, or Sumeru's strongest point was the story of the whole, living Sub-Zero festival over and over and over and over. Nahida being able to kind of interact with and manipulate people's minds or dreams and whatever, and kind of getting to the bottom of it. So I'd say A, despite the fact that I already docked a few points because of the nation itself for just being too freaking big. The story was really really good. The doctor was great. Um, Farina or why do I'm just eager to get to Fontaine. Nahida was absolutely amazing. Such a great character. Um, and yeah, the just a really bunch of cool things in Fontaine. Or again, Fontaine. It's Sumeru, 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 Sumeru. A lot of stuff in Sumeru to find. Um, so I mean, they also had like the where you have to like play the music and stuff like that. And there's just a really bunch of like weird, interesting mechanics introduced, which was great. I mean, it's time to do something new. It's like, well, introduce it in the same nation that we're introducing the Dendro characters. So Sumeru, definitely A tier. I'm not even gonna wait. Fontaine, S all the way. Uh, you have a character, Farina, who you first get there and you have your first battle with her. And you're like, oh my god, I can't stand this character already. And then by the end of it, you're like, I'm so sorry. Everything I said about you, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Um, we get to meet Arlecchino, other great characters like Navia, Miss Navia. Malus and Silver were great characters. They were like side characters. They were just, you know, Navia's assistants, her bodyguards, but they were so cool. And so then when the thing happens to them, you're like, no, 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 don't do this to me, no, no. Um, but despite like Navia constantly crying because it seems like she constantly is, she's a really great character. Charlotte's a great character. Linny Lynette, great characters. Arlecchino, ooh, father. Uh, kind of hinting that the Fatui aren't nearly as bad as they seem. She kind of says at the end that what the Fatui plan on doing is doesn't concern a single person or a nation, but the entire world. And she refers to us as great partners, and then she very much looks forward to working with us again. Nouvellette, Nouvellette, Monsieur Nouvellette, Risley. Even characters like Siegewein, who you really don't interact with a lot, but she's memorable. Miss, I will break your kneecaps to keep you in bed if I think that you need to be treated, and she'll do it with a smile. It's like, no, really, Miss Siegewein, I feel really good. Snap. You need to stay in bed. This is for your own good. I just want you to get better. It's okay. I'll fix your kneecaps. But you gotta promise me to stay in bed. Um, but like you go and talk to Risley, and like you see that he's building an ark. And then basically the thought of him creaming his pants when he finally gets to use it. Um, the nation itself, a lot of interesting puzzles, including underwater stuff, which obviously it's like if you're going to introduce underwater exploration, it made sense to do it in Fontaine. I said that in the very beginning, like when I first started. I was like, we should have underwater stuff, but if it's gonna happen, it's gonna be in Fontaine because Fontaine is the hydro nation. So it would make more sense to have underwater stuff in Fontaine, which they did. They introduced there. Like I said, a lot of cool puzzles, a lot of mechanisms, a lot of underwater ruins to explore, which was really really cool. The story was absolutely peak. The whole trial with Linny, um, the trial with Child, all these trials that you get to see, and Vache, who was like freaking taking people and dissolving them with water from the primordial sea, and then that comes, it's brought up again with Farina's, sentence, her, from the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal. According to the judgment of the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal. Um, and even Paimon's like, wait, why did the Oratrice say that? It's like Vache was like literally dissolving people, and he didn't get sentenced to death. Even he didn't get sentenced to death. Um, yeah, and then Nouvelet's like, yeah, this Oratrice bitch is fucking cray cray, man. It's like, is Farina really is what did she do to deserve this? Um, we meet Focalor, we and then something that gets brought up in the very beginning when we get there is said again, and it hits so much harder because at first when we're told about it, it's just like a legend, a rumor, about the Hydro Dragon don't cry thing, about when it rains in Fontaine, it's actually the Hydro Dragon crying. And then we realize that it is the Hydro Dragon crying, that it's Nouvelet when he's crying or he's upset or overwhelmed or something. And when the thing happens with Focalor, he's outside and it's it is completely just draining. It's storming, and it's just, you're like, oh my god, he is really upset. He is really upset. Like the sky is pitch dark, and it is just coming down hard. And you realize that, even Focalor says the whole Hydro Dragon don't cry thing, and you're like, oh my god, no, please, no, no, no. You see Farina with what she had to deal with for 500 years, and that tore people apart. Like, I've seen some of the guys, like especially the guys who look like they generally wouldn't be, emotional, teary-eyed. They start to get teary-eyed because of how well written Farina is. She is an amazing character, and she's probably the best written character in the game. But everything about Fontaine, the atmosphere of it, the puzzles were great, the story was amazing, the underwater stuff, given it was their first underwater. I mean, compared to like say World of Warcraft, when it's like, oh hey guys, we're gonna have Vazir, and then it's like absolute crap, you know. So their first venture into underwater combat and stuff like that, it was actually really good. It was really good, and Fontaine, it was just, so there's no doubt, peak storytelling. If I could give it higher than an S tier, I would. If I could give it like a S plus, I would give it an S plus. But now we come to Natlan, and we've just finished up the story. Natlan is actually pretty. The color scheme definitely looks a lot more cartoony than the other nations. A lot more bright, more vivid, more bold colors, especially with the graffiti and everything. A lot of dark, purple, or bright purples and blues and yellows. But the introduction of the Saurians and kind of each one of them, how each one of them is like, oh, one burrows on the ground and one can fly, and one's really good at swimming, and one's got a long tongue like Yoshi, and of course that those are green. Imagine that. A green dinosaur with a long tongue? Color me shocked. But the characters there are probably some of the best. Kachina, Mulani, Sasuke. Shilonin, Silali, Mawika, Auroron. Uh, we get introduced to the captain, who probably the biggest letdown. It doesn't affect the story too much, but we were looking so forward to the captain, and Mawika beats him, and then suddenly it's like the next part, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm on your side. I'll work together with you." And it's like, we got to fight Arlecchino. Can we fight you, please, please? But really emotional, especially the ending. The final act, the moment. There's the moment with the two Saurians, and you realize who they are before it even happens. You're like, no, if those are who I think they are, game, don't do this to me. And then it's confirmed to be exactly who you think it is, or who you think they are. And you're like, no, 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 game, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? I don't want to cry right now. Why are you doing this to me? And just to add insult to injury, they push it even further to the point where it's like, no, no, please, no, 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 we're not doing this. We're not doing this. Um, you have the whole thing with Chaska and her sister, which that was hard. Um, but that final battle with you and Marwika, and like the whole thing just getting there between people who are still alive, the people who are dead. Seelies are showing. Like it's like this whole final confrontation that's been building up for thousands of years, and everyone is there. Whether it be the people who are alive and they're with us there in spirit, or the people who are dead who are helping us along. It was so good. It was so good. The finale, the seeing outside and everyone's kind of like sitting, praying, and the flame, the ode of the resurrection, goes out, and they're all like, "Oh my God, did they just lose? Is everything screwed?" And Kachina kind of is the one who steps forward and does the poem and all that we hear again. And the flame burns bright again. Again, the final battle and the entrance. It's like we finish the battle, and the travelers like, so how do we get out of here? Do we pray? And Moika's like, no, I got a better way. You get on a motorcycle and you burst out through the flame of the Oda Resurrection, and the moment with Paimon, I'm like, please don't do this to me, Gabe. Please, you're taking one of the most annoying characters and making me feel things. Um, and then and then Paimon starts talking again, and you're like, okay, Paimon, I don't care anymore. You had your moment and you ruined it. Um, the moment with the captain where he basically is like, hey, Celestia, yeah. The fact that the god of death was so proud, like just like too prideful to just let it go and release the curse of immortality. She's like, the curse of immortality must stand. Like, okay, okay. Um, and I think the captain kind of knew that. It's like, well, you can release me from this, go back on your word, or you know, the curse of immortality, and you take that back, or you let me trigger this paradox and completely screw things up for you. And no matter, despite that, they're like, the curse of immortality must stand. And you can hear it in their voice that they're questioning it, but because they're gods and they're too prideful, they're not going to go back on their choice. Um, and then the captain becomes the Lich King, and which I think sets up a really good story, possibly, because basically what it looks like, it's like the lights are on but no one's home, so his body is still there. It's just he's not, like, there's no soul. So I think if the Cerisa is doing what I think she's trying to do, especially with the Gnosis, considering we know the Gnosis are the third descender, maybe his body, the captain's body could possibly be used as a vessel for the spirit of the third descender. Um, because again, he's still there. It's like his body is there. He's still there. It's just he doesn't have a soul anymore. His spirit, his soul, because he's immortal. There's really no way of lifting it. I think he's almost like Schrodinger's cat. He's alive and dead at the same time. Um, because the curse of immortality is still there. So he's not truly dead. So his spirit has kind of moved on to the Night Kingdom. It's become one with, you know, with her, the ruler, but his body is still there. If he, kind of like I said, with like the Lich King, where it's kind of like he's in a form like stasis almost. But for Captain, his soul is just gone, so leaving an empty vessel. So maybe we can see a third descender inhabit the body of the Captain. But um, I think A tier, definitely A. Which, yeah, a lot of cool puzzles. I love the different Saurians and using their different abilities, whether it be the swimming. But then you have Mawika, who's just everything. She can fly, she can glide, ride on water, she can climb up walls on her bike. It's just her bike is a one-stop shop for everything. Uh, so, but the characters, like I said, are memorable. Mulani, Kachina, some of the sweetest characters. Um, the fact that Mawika, during her little with the ceremony at the end, she said the four words that get people every single time. The four words. I heard it and I was like, oh God. Oh God. Don't do this to me, game. She said, we will be reunited. I'm like, oh God. Oh God. Screw you. Screw you, game. Screw you. Um, so those four words from all the way back then are still holding meaning now. Mainly it's for the traveler and his, their, the siblings. But every time if we hear those words, we will be reunited, you're like, oh, uh, please no. But yeah, it's definitely A. The writing was kind of bogged down in some places, but the nation itself was really cool. Like I said, I liked using the Saurians' different abilities. Um, but yeah, you know what? No, I want to move it to S because it is actually really good, but I think Sumeru is actually better. Actually, no, I think, you know what? I think it is S. Thinking about it and talking about it, like, I think it is S. I think it is. Sumeru was kind of, you know, bogged down by a lot. Um, yeah, I think it is. I think it's S. The 1,000-year war with the Abyss finally coming to an end. The people of Natlan finally being able to leave. Like, I think Vanessa was from Natlan. Vanessa, the same person whose Mondstadt became Mondstadt's first acting grandmaster, she was from Natlan. Um, so you could tell how long ago, it's been since someone left. Um, but that whole story of thousands, 1,000 years or thousands of years with the Abyss attacking and the ancient names things was really really cool, and um, that final battle, it was good. It was good. I like how even this is though. 2-2-2. Got the arc. We got Risley's arc up in here. It got 2x2. Um, and also it's the first, second. Actually, no, it's. I was about to say it's the first and second nation, the third and fourth nation. No, it's Inazuma and Mondstadt. But yeah, this is my opinion. I could probably make the video longer and go more in depth to why I think these things, but no one's gonna watch that. So, you know, on a bite-sized kind of video, bite-sized at 40 minutes, as opposed to like a 2-hour video that I could make. But yeah. Really thinking back, I mean, I just did the thing like the other day, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's not as good, but now thinking back, it really was good. It really was good. For Natlan. Um, not as good as Fontaine, but it's definitely S tier. Um, but these are just my opinions. Like an asshole, everyone's got one. And hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. No, let me hear your own tier list. You can give it a ranking, you can break it down, by, stuff like I said, like I did with like the nation itself, the puzzles, story, stuff like that. Or you can just base it on the Archon quests. That's just probably a lot simpler. But anyway, that's gonna do for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye guys.